What's up, guys, and welcome back to another video. I had messed up quite a bit. I had said that I was going to be putting out a video at least once a week, and things happen. People get busy, lives are changing every single day, and I just haven't had the time to be able to sit down and do a video. But that changes today. Today, I am finally going to get around to doing the video that I've been wanting to do for a while, and that's going to be on a camera that basically changed my life. In a way, this camera made me think very differently. It made me do things differently as far as filmmaking is concerned, and it made me inspired, like many things should be. So today we're going to be talking about my awesome GH5 Mark II. So the GH5 Mark II for me was a camera, again, that really changed the way I do things. You guys have all seen, or if you haven't, you can go check it out. I'll leave it in the description below. But you guys have seen the video that I've done on the LUMIX G85. That camera was obviously one of the biggest changes I ever made because it was the first camera that I bought that was outside of my iPhone. That camera made it to where I could do podcasts and I can get into filming and I could see if that's something I actually enjoy doing. As time went by, I wanted to do more and more and more, and I wanted things to look better. A lot of people out there will tell you gear doesn't matter, and for the most part, I agree. I come from audio engineering, and by audio engineering, I mean purely amateur. I was recording myself, I was wanting to record bands, and I was wanting to do anything with recording. I bought all this expensive gear, when realistically, a lot of the stuff that I already had would have done the job just fine. Sure, there were things like low latency monitoring and things like that with some of the gear that I bought, but to be fair, I could have gotten away with what I had and it would have sounded fine. It would have sounded great. I could have done whatever I really wanted with that type of gear. And some of that cheaper stuff I actually still have. For the G85, what that was for me was something to get started. It was kind of your gateway drug, if you will. Got me starting to want to do more filming. Most of the time I shot in 4K, or my apologies, I shot in 1080 60, and the co-host that I had on my podcast always said, let's shoot in 24, and there was something about it I didn't like. I didn't like 24 frames per second. I don't know why. I came from a gaming background. I had no idea what I was doing. As far as, with gaming, you want higher frames, right? You want massive frames, but in the camera world, that's very different. So when we started experimenting with 4K 24, because that was the only 4K option that really has 24 or 30 on the G85, I really didn't like the look of it. Something was off about it, and I don't know what it is, and sometimes I can get a good image out of it, and other times I can't. When I started wanting to film more and do more and have better quality videos, especially with the videos I was doing online for any of the music stuff, I decided that I needed a better camera. I needed something. And again, gear doesn't matter. I could have most likely easily, do not tell my wife, most likely I could have gotten away with the G85 for many years. It's an extremely old camera, but it still produces great image quality. At the 4K settings, you can do up to 100 megabits per second as far as the write speeds are concerned. So you're getting a lot of information. It's just there is no log profiles on it. The natural profile is fantastic, as I've said in the video before. And that's the same for the GH5 Mark II as well. We'll get into that in just a second. But that camera could have gotten the job done, but I wanted something more. I wanted something fresh. I wanted something inspiring. And that was the GH5 Mark II. So for me, right off the bat, this camera's like twice the size of the G85, so it feels instantly more professional. Currently, I have it caged up in a small rig cage. I never found one for the G85. I didn't look that hard either. I didn't think it was something I was going to want or need. I did find it for the GH5 Mark II, and this came about after my second wedding that I shot. I was using a gimbal a lot, and I was running around destroying my back, and I said, man, the Micro Four Thirds system specifically has some of the best IBIS in the business, and LUMIX, hands down, is one of the best outside of Olympus or whatever it may be. I decided at that wedding I was going to shoot handheld, and I was working for somebody else at that time, so that was scary, but the footage came out fantastic. And to be fair, I kept putting the camera on the tripod and leaving IBIS on, which means I had to almost restabilize, destabilize, do some weird stuff to get that footage to even look good, because it looked weird. This camera's overcompensating because that's how good it is. It doesn't matter the movement, it is compensating for that movement. So I put it in a cage and I haven't looked back. Same with my S5 Mark II. But with this camera, I was able to open up a lot of things that I couldn't do on the G85. For starters, the 4K 24 looked massively better. The 4K 24 at this is recorded at a 422 10-bit color profile. It records at 150 megabits per second versus 100 that I was getting on the G85, so I'm getting more range out of that. And then there's a lot of features on this that I want to talk about. Now, in this video, I am not going to be going over every little spec. If you saw my last video, you know I talked about Geedy Nerdy Techie a lot. He's kind of the guy that's kind of set me off. Now, he's been playing with a lot of Sonys lately. I won't be doing that. I'm very much enjoying my LUMIX system, but he still uses them. He still talks about them, and he's made great videos. And for me, honestly, he made one of the most in-depth videos about this camera, and that is a video I'm going to link in the description for below. If you want to know more about how to set it up, how to do a whole lot of things outside of what I'm about to tell you, go to his video. It'll teach you a lot. But the 4K 24 in 10-bit color, it's something I didn't even know was a thing. You know, again, as a beginner filmmaker, I had no idea. I just had a camera. It was professional. It wasn't my phone. And I thought I could do anything with it. But this introduced me to a whole new set of features with that. So the 10-bit, a lot easier to color grade if you're into that kind of thing and you don't want to just take the camera straight out of body. You want to be able to manipulate it. You can manipulate it more. Again, it's recording in 422. The other things about this camera that the G85 didn't have is that it's recording in Vlog-L, or it has the ability to record in Vlog-L. Now, as I stated in the G85, and I stated already, the natural profile on these cameras are fantastic. You make a couple quick changes on them. Geeky Nerdy Techie will talk about that. I think I talked about it a little bit in my last video. Make a couple changes to it. It looks fantastic, straight out of camera. Do a little bit of color grading, a little bit of editing to it. It's a great video, especially in the YouTube sense of things. If you're doing any type of home videos, whatever it is that you may be doing, maybe outside of straight professional work, which you could get away depending on what you're doing with just that natural profile. For this, I got introduced to a log profile. Now, for this, I had to learn, it wasn't until after I got my S5 II that this shoots in a Vlog-L. I believe the L stands for light. I could be wrong. I'll try to research it, put it on the screen here. But with the Vlog-L, it still is a very flat profile. What a log profile, for those of you who don't know, does is it offers a more dynamic range. It offers a higher dynamic range. So I don't know the stops exactly with this. Again, something I'll put on the screen here, I'm sure. With this, I'm sure it's like 10 to 12 stops or something. The S5 II is 14 or 16 stops of dynamic range. And what that does is your highs are higher, your lows are lower. So with that, when you go to color grading, you have a lot more flexibility in your colors. Your colors are better. Everything just looks better. It looks like a professional image. You know, for some of you, if you are still beginner level or you're like me that's kind of jumping into that, maybe the log profile is not for you. It is something that you have to know how to grade. And you have to know how to correct and, you know, make sure all of your white balance is correct. It looks gray on the screen. It looks weird, right? But what I can say, there are a lot of companies out there and different tools that you can use that'll quickly get you a grade on that footage. For example, this footage here is going to be graded with the Gamut IO LUT packs. For starters, I have a base conversion, which converts my vlog footage from what would be gray to an actual color space, and I believe it's a Rec 709 color space that it'll put it into, so it actually looks like what it should. It has colors, it's not flat, it's not boring, it's not dull. And then within DaVinci Resolve, you can use their color space transform in order to transform to a Rec 709 format as well from vlog footage, or for the case of the GH5 Mark II, Vlog-L. If you're scared of something like that, I wouldn't be. You can get right into it. You'll be able to do it with either DaVinci Resolve, and that's including on the free version, or Gamut IO. I think the LUT pack was like 25 or 30 bucks, and then they let you add a boost to kind of boost some contrast and vibrance of the footage for like 10 bucks. So for less than 50 bucks, you have a fantastic converted footage. And then from there, you can add on different LUT packs that you may be interested in too, or you really get your look together. Another thing about this camera that I love is it's got 4K 60. Now on the G85, I can only do 1080 60, and this does 4K 60 fantastically. A lot of wedding footage that I shoot is in 4K 60 for any slow-mo, beautiful cinematic feel to it. Like everybody else, I overdo it constantly, but it's fun to shoot in. It's a great feature to have. There's also Cinema 4K on here, which I believe gives you a bit of a wider aspect ratio, so it feels a little more cinematic. I'm sure there are other terms for it, but for us beginners out there, it just looks cooler. Gives you little black bars automatically. And with it, you can get higher write speed. So instead of, 150, you can get up to 400 megabits per second. The other thing that this camera offers, which is really cool, which I haven't experimented with just because I haven't been able to get my hands on one yet, this accepts anamorphic lenses. So with that, you can shoot in anamorphic and really get you a very cinematic look and blue flares or orange flares or whatever it is that you're into. And one of the cool features about this camera is it shows you the D-squeeze on the screen. Now, it doesn't do all of them. I don't believe it does up to like a 2x or anything like that. But for me, what I've always wanted to try is a 1.33x squeeze. That way it's not super squeeze and has to be put on a very widescreen, setting, or, like a monitor like I use, super wide 21:9 ratio. It'll give you that anamorphic look, but not go crazy. So you could see that D-squeeze on here, which makes it really, really awesome. And so that way you can automatically see what kind of footage it is that you have. So whenever I get my hands on some anamorphic lenses, I will 100% be doing that on this camera and the S5 Mark II. The other thing that this camera offers is waveform and vector scopes, something that is key to making sure that you are nailing exposure, nailing your skin tones, nailing saturation if you want it out of the body. All of that is there for you on screen on the camera. You can move it around, you can change it up, whatever it is that you want. You can set, I believe, some thresholds on there. I could be wrong about that, but there are a lot of great filmmaking features. So for me, this camera changed it to where I can now shoot almost anything that I wanted. Now, again, gear doesn't matter, right? But with this is still kind of an entry to mid-level camera that you can go do professional work with. A lot of people out there say you need a Red, or you need an Arri Alexa, or you need the S5 Mark II, or even in the case of the S5 Mark II, a lot of people are arguing that you need the S5 II Mark X to be able to do some of these features. So you can record in RAW, and you can be able to record in Apple ProRes and stuff like that. You can get fantastic, beautiful images out of this. You can go shoot a movie with this if you really wanted to. It's a great camera. It's great for beginners especially, but it's also great for mid-level or even professional level work. I was able to shoot a wedding, put some footage up, and I thought it looked fantastic. Typically, if I don't want to take out the nice, expensive S5 Mark II, I take out the slightly cheaper, even though when I pair it with that 10 to 25 lens that you guys have seen on this channel before, this lens costs almost as much as the S5 Mark II. Which is insane, and I wish I knew more. This is why I'm doing these videos, so you can kind of learn that there are different things out there, and gear doesn't necessarily matter. For the longest time, even on the GH5 Mark II, I was still using the little $150 lens, 1.7 aperture. It looks fantastic. This is one of my favorite little lenses. Can't believe it's only $150. Looks great. A lot of people with Micro Four Thirds and some of these systems, they complain about autofocus. I can tell you, I don't have an issue with autofocus. Is it as good as the S5 Mark II or any of the Sonys or some of the Canons out there? Absolutely not. It's not even close, but it works. It works great, especially when you have some of these better lenses paired with it a little faster, or you could drop, put it down to like a 2.8, 2.2. I've done it all, and it looks great. The autofocus is fine. When it can't catch focus, which I have had issues in the past, it's a very easy switch to manual focus. This lens specifically has a little clutch ring on it. You pop it open, and you're able to get right in focus. And then you can do a manual autofocus assist. So if you wanted an autofocus, but you can't nail it, but you want to keep it in autofocus, you can switch your manual focus on real quick, get that focus, and then it'll continuously drive the autofocus from there. One of the other major factors about these cameras, obviously, is the low light performance. So most people's complaints, if they don't want to pick this up, or it's not professional grade, or whatever the case may be, is low light and autofocus. So with that though, get lights. The lights I'm using for this are cheap panel lights that I use for streaming. It works fine. I have other lights that are slightly more expensive that I could set up and drag cables around and be able to do really, really cool work with, but these work just fine, as you can see. I hope you guys like the way this looks. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. With autofocus, you can get there. If not, most people in the professional grade anyways, what are they using? They're using manual focus. But for YouTube videos and anything that I've ever done, the autofocus works fine. I took some family video at the pool. It was a big birthday celebration, and it captured the kids, it captured the water, they capture the family. Pay attention to what you're doing. I had some photos that I took where the water was in focus, which was weird to me outside of the subjects that I was shooting for pictures. This thing also does fantastic pictures. It's a great hybrid camera. It's over 20 megapixels and it takes really good photos. I'll put some on the screen here for you. This camera has professional quality grade features that will get you exactly what you want. Low light autofocus aside, it has everything you could ever really need, unless you are shooting big time commercials. And at that point, you should have a budget. You should have a massive budget where you can go out and rent your Sony FX6s or FX9 or whatever it is that you want, or the LUMIX GH5M2 Mark X with the best lenses that you can get on the market. You should have budgets for that, right? If you want to get started, stop worrying about the gear, get something that works, and this is it. Of course, then again, my wife is going to say, well, why did we have to get the new camera? Because I wanted it, and I could get it. And I sold some music gear for it, just so I could get it. It's my passion. It's what I like to do. So now I have a sick A cam. It works fantastic. I record everything on this thing. And then my B cam is a GH5 Mark II, which is insane for me to think about. Before, it was 3 G85s mixed with the GH5 Mark II. So when I go to compare that footage, it took a lot of work to get anything usable out of any of it. Now I have two solid cameras. It's an A and a B cam. I have a G85 still, one left out of all the ones that I had. I have one left that is an absolute C cam, or realistically, my son likes to take photos with it because he thinks he's a photographer now at 4 years old. And so this is his little setup here. He enjoys it, nice and compact. And realistically, the G85 might be something I might take when I travel or anything like that. Just something that I don't have to take too seriously, have some fun, and not worry about capturing every little thing that I do, because you need to enjoy life. The GH5 has the features that you need. It's the features that you want. Anamorphic, cinema 4K, so you have a 17:9 versus a 16:9 aspect ratio. You have features like Vlog L, so you can actually have a log profile of some sorts, a flatter profile, to really have that most dynamic range you can possibly get out of, obviously, this camera. It's got decent autofocus. I don't think autofocus is that bad on these cameras. I think it's worse on an iPhone almost sometimes, unless you have it in like their cinema mode. If you have the latest and greatest where you can tap and it captures it quick. You can change the snappiness of the autofocus. You have waveforms, vector scopes. You have everything that you can need. And then if you really want, start pairing it with some awesome lenses like this one. Find it used if you can, so you don't pay the ungodly amount that I paid for this. I thought it's what I needed. You have these little lenses that you can pair with it. The kit lens that comes with the G85, the 12-60. It's great for anything outdoors. As long as you got a light source, it's going to look great. It's going to give you nice, clear, sharp images. Sometimes in these cameras, too sharp, and you can get fantastic looking images out of them. And then I have one of these guys. It's like your B cam or something like that. It's a great camera. I plan to do more with it in the future. The next video series that I will probably do is the LUMIX GH5M2. And I say series because that is probably going to be broken down. I am going to try to explain that more. I know there's a ton of videos out there on it as well, just like the GH5 Mark II. The GH5 Mark II is just a little older, and Geeky Nerdy Techie did such a fantastic job of getting me kind of in the setting that I want to be. I definitely trust his videos. Did the same for the S5 Mark II, but now I want to take the S5 Mark II as one of the most relevant cameras and really talk about it and let you know how I feel and how I use it. The only other things left on this camera that I forgot to mention is you have custom functions, just like the G85. You have a lot more. You have a C1 through C3, and then on your C3, I think there's 4 or 5 that you can program there. So I've got some photo functions. I got my 4K 24, I got my 4K 60. And then if I wanted to, I could set another one for some of the cinema, or if I ever get my hands on some anamorphic lenses, I can set up for anamorphic on that and have all my custom settings there. And it's a fantastic battery. It takes the same battery as the S5 Mark II. So I have a ton of those now, and you can find them for decent price for third-party batteries, and that actually work and do well. It's got a full HDMI port on it. It's got USB-C as well for charging. You're supposed to be able to charge the camera. I have never been able to successfully do that. Can't even do it with the S5 Mark II. I got to be doing something wrong, but that's what we're here to learn, and I'm going to try to figure that out and let you guys know how it works. Listen, if you guys liked this video, and I hope you did, if you could, drop a like, drop a comment, drop a subscribe. Any of that helps this channel out. As you can see, there's not a whole lot of subscribers on it now. It is a fairly new channel. I had some videos up that wasn't necessarily promoting, people were watching them, but I wasn't making any videos outside of the wedding or family videos that I was posting on this channel. There will be more of those in the future. I have a couple weddings lined up for next month, as well as one photo wedding, which will be interesting because I'm not the greatest photographer, but I'm gonna try. And it'll be mostly shot on the S5 Mark II. GH5 will remain a B cam. I've thought about selling it, especially with this very expensive lens. I think the combination together could easily grant me another S5 Mark II. But I like it. There is something about this camera that I absolutely enjoy. It feels great. It's micro four thirds, so it's a little lighter. Lenses can be super tiny, and you could have a lot of fun with it. Next will probably be like the little 9mm for me, and maybe I'll take this for vlogging or something like that if I get into that. Everything else on this camera does exactly what you need it to do. Again, worry about your light. Manual focus if you need to, but autofocus works fine. Stop letting people tell you it's bad. It's not that bad. It captures fine. You just have to pay attention to what you're doing and be there and be that cameraman you're supposed to be with this camera. Outside of that, I've got no issues with this. And I'd like to thank you for watching this video. If you made it all the way to the end, once again, drop a like, drop a comment, help out the channel, and I'll see you next time. I appreciate you guys. Be safe. Thanks.